Hey guys, I'm Adam Hooson. I'm a Mould Alun alumni, and I've put together a short-ish video on how to make fresh pasta for all the parents and students at Mould Alun for alleviating boredom during the quarantine period. So, basic recipe. There'll be loads out there, but this is my version. And what we do is we add 100 grams of flour, which, if you haven't got any scales, is roughly 4 normal spoons, heaped spoons. Throw them into a bowl. 2, 3, 4, and that's about 100 grams. Doesn't have to be perfect. Italian cooking is not about specific measurements, it's about feeling as you go. Now, we're going to add some moisture to this flour to make the dough. You can either do that with water, if you want to do a vegan version, and that's more of a southern Italian style recipe, or you can add eggs, which is northern Italian because they're more expensive. And we're going to use eggs because it gives it that nice rich flavour and that yellow colour. And what we want to do is add, for every 100 grams, I always add 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. So I'm going to add my first egg. Notice how I cracked it on a flat surface. Less chance of you shattering the shell and getting shell in your mixture. That's the first one. I've got a separate bowl there to put all my gubbins in. And now I'm going to do my first yolk. So if you haven't cracked or yolked an egg before, crack it open, half it, like that. And what you want to do is you want to swap that yolk from side to side and get rid of, see how that white's dripping out? Yeah. Throw that in. And now we go with our second full egg. So I'm making 2 portions. So yeah, it's 200 grams of flour and 4 eggs. My second yolk, get the white or the albumin out, like that, swap, swap. Again, there's no science behind it, just throw it in. I hope you've all washed your hands before this as well. I'm gonna go now and whisk all that up, roughly, with a fork to begin with, and add a bit of salt. Again, some recipes say no salt or oil, but I like my pasta to taste like salt. Bit of salt and just a drop of oil to give it a nice velvety texture. Go ahead and whisk that all together. And what we want to see is breadcrumb-like mixture afterwards. So don't worry if you guys have got a slightly more moist dough, because the difference every recipe we have is eggs. Eggs are not a unanimous size, they're all very different. So notice how my dough is quite a bit runnier than I would have anticipated. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a bit more flour in. And what we want, yeah, is, like I said, it is sort of a breadcrumb style type dough. So it's not completely dry, but it starts to break up. That's 2, 3, 4. So I've got 8 spoons of flour in there now, which is about 200 grams. And we should see this start to come together and look like those breadcrumbs we want to see. So yeah, so in total I've got now 2 eggs, 2 egg yolks, and about 200 grams of flour, which is 8 spoons. 8 heaped normal spoons. Right, there we go, that's coming together. See how that looks now? It should start sticking to the fork a little bit and sort of forming that dough-like ball. What we're going to do now is we're going to get in with there with our hands, but one hand at this point, because if our dough is too dry or too moist, we want to start adding more flour or a bit of water or egg yolk. So don't use both hands because you get a mess. So rings off, get in there with one hand, right. Still a little bit wet, a little bit more flour, start mixing that in. Right, that's starting to feel more like a Play-Doh now. It's basically, you want to make Play-Doh style dough. So once you get a dough that isn't completely sticking to your hands, we're going to go ahead and lightly flour our bench or our chopping board if we're using that. And we're going to take the dough out and we're going to press it down and we're going to start kneading. There's no real technique here, it's just literally get involved, get some elbow grease in there. So you want to use the ball of your hands there, like that. Just try and get over it and just go at it like that. So the reason we're flouring our bench is so the dough doesn't stick to the bench. So kneading dough, what it does is it activates the gluten in the dough, which allows the protein networks to form, and that's what gives it that springy, nice, elastic texture that we all like and know from pasta. So I'm going to pull it and then roll it back. That's another technique. Push it, roll it back, push, and just keep doing that, rotating the dough. You want to do this for about 5 minutes until the dough is completely smooth and there's no dry spots on it, and it shouldn't be sticking to your hands. It should feel tacky, but not sticky. It shouldn't stick to your hands, and it shouldn't stick to your bench eventually. So go ahead and do that for 5 minutes. Right, we should have kneaded our dough for about 5 minutes now. Don't be stingy on this part. Don't do it for 1 minute, 2 minutes. Set a time if you have to on your phone or something. But really start working the dough. And like I said, it shouldn't be sticking to your work surface, shouldn't be sticking to your hands, but it shouldn't be too dry, it shouldn't be a real effort to work that dough. So once we've done that, so this is, like I said, 2 portions of dough, 4 spoons of flour, 2 eggs, 2 egg yolks, a bit of salt, bit of oil. Should look and feel really smooth. My breath. Start working that, and once we've done that and got that smooth dough, what we're going to do is, and this is fairly crucial, if you can't be bothered, just go ahead and start making pasta and skip this part of the video. But I recommend wrapping your dough in cling film or a damp towel or cloth and resting it in the fridge for at least half an hour. It doesn't have to be too long, but I'd recommend 30 minutes in the fridge. And what that does, it gives the dough time to relax. So those proteins that I talked about earlier in the gluten, they will relax. The dough will absorb a little bit more moisture from the air, but it won't dry out. So that's going in the fridge for half an hour. Our dough is rested in the fridge for about half an hour, and what you'll notice is it may have changed colour slightly and you've got a little bit more of a sheen to it after we've rested it. That's good, but it'll be a little bit more moist than when we put it in. So we're going to go ahead and flour our bench again. So I've cleared up a little bit since I've rested the dough. So flour that and give it a quick knead just to bring it back. Right, and this is the part we get our pin involved. So we're going to go and roll that out. If you haven't got a rolling pin, bottle of wine lying around the house or olive oil or whatever you've got will work just fine. So what I'm doing is I'm folding the dough over and then rolling it again. That's called laminating, and it's just like another kneading process to give it that nice silky smooth texture. Right, sticking to my pins, I'm going to flour that a little bit more again and go again. Fold and roll. And you'll notice now that this dough should be quite easy to roll out. If it's a real mission, don't worry, just persist. If your dough's got a bit more flour in it, it might be a bit harder, but just keep going with it. Right, so that's really nice now. You can see how smooth that dough is. It's ready to be used. So what we've got 2 options. Got 2 options. We can make lasagna, which are those long, nice sheets, which then makes all our great pastas like tagliatelle, linguine, all those ones. Or we can make unrolled dough, which are the quite fun ones. So I'll show you those first. So take your dough, and you want to take a little bit of your dough. And when we're making pasta, the excess dough, make sure you wrap that back up and leave it on the side, because if you leave that unwrapped, that will start to form a skin and it'll dry out. So I'm going to roll this into a sort of a thick sausage. Again, this is why it's so much like Play-Doh, because it's just the same. So I'm just pressing down and spreading my fingers out to make that into a sausage. So you want it to be nice and even. And what I'm going to go and do is get a knife, or I've got a bench scraper, and just chop little nuggets of dough off like that. So they should look like little pillows, sort of 1 centimetre in size. Right, so we've got little pillows of dough like that. See those? And what I'm going to do now is just literally put my thumb into the dough and press it like that and roll it. And that makes what's called cavatelli. And that makes a nice little groove in that pasta to pick up all that nice sauce and retain that flavour. So that's what most of the pasta shapes are designed to do, is just collect sauce. There we go, see that, cavatelli? So that's a nice easy one. Like that. And go ahead and just start rolling a load of those out. Don't worry if they all start sticking together a little bit or they're not all the same. That's good, because you'll get different textures. So that's a really easy one. If you can't be bothered rolling the dough out, you want just some quick pasta, you just push it, roll it like that, easy. There we go. All slightly different, all going to be delicious. So that's one, cavatelli. May or may not have heard of that one before. So that's the first one. The second one, we're going to roll the dough out. So most doughs start their life out as lasagna. So we're going to try and roll out. I'm taking about half my dough I've got left there, and I'll roll it into a nice big lasagna sheet. Flour my bench and just start rolling that out. Again, no real technique, just get involved and try and get it as thin as you can. And it might be a bit of effort, but it's fun. So just roll it. If your dough is sticking to your bench like mine is, just go ahead and add some more flour and start again. Go, go. And what we want to do is, we want to roll this dough out to a thickness where you can see your hand through it. So that should take you, again, about 5 minutes. Just persist with it. And what you'll notice, if you don't rest your dough in the fridge, the dough will retain a lot of elasticity, and as you start rolling it out, it will start shrinking back and it'll make your life a lot harder. So if you can, invest that half an hour in resting your dough beforehand. So I'm flouring my bench again, because it's sticking. If you're working on a slightly smaller workspace or you're on a chopping board, just use less dough and that'll give you a smaller sheet. Alright, so I'm just working it round, making sure it's consistent. So I haven't got any thick parts and thin parts. I'm just rolling the edges out, making sure the middle's going as well. Always making sure that my pasta's not sticking to my work surface, otherwise it'll be a nightmare getting it up later. So just flouring as I go. Roll it out again. And again, don't worry about being perfect, just get a nice big flat circle or rectangle or whatever the hell you've got going on. And the great thing about this is once you've learnt this recipe, you can make so many different types of pasta, and there's thousands out there, different ones, different dishes. Some are like noodles, some are like little bow ties, which I'm about to show you. So, what I'm going to do is now I've got a nice thin piece of pasta lasagna, which I can nearly see my hand through. I'm going to start making my shapes. So, with my knife or cutter, I'm just going to cut that in half just so I can show you two different styles of pasta. Right, let's leave that one for later. So we're making the bow ties, which are actually called farfalle, or in Italian it roughly translates to butterfly, not bow tie. So, I'll get a knife actually, it's a bit easier. So with a knife, we're going to cut as evenly as possible squares, so about 1 inch by 1 inch or so. So cut, use a pizza roller if you want, probably a lot easier. Use a knife, whatever you want. So I'm just cutting these into strips, and then when I go this way now, I'm going to trim off my edges, all my rubbish. I don't want, discard that. And now I'm going to try and cut them into nice squares. Again, they probably won't be super even, but don't worry. That's Italian cooking. Into squares, like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to make farfalle. So, the easiest way to do that is to take your index finger, your first finger, in the middle, and pinch it with your middle finger and your thumb. So, like that, and then pinch. And that should make you a nice farfalle. So you haven't got the ribboned edges, don't worry about that, it's not the end of the world. So that's that one again, show you that one again. So, middle finger in the middle, and then pinch, push. So just do that on your bench, and you'll get into a rhythm of it, and just work quickly, because we've got our other dough here, drying out as we speak. So obviously, depending on how many people you're cooking for, just go ahead and change my recipe accordingly. So notice how I'm not precious over this shape, I'm just... But make sure you pinch it hard enough that it does stick in the middle, because if you don't, those guys will unravel in the pan when you cook them. Pinch, pinch. Oh, that was a bit there. So what I'm going to do, which is key, is heavily flour my pasta after I've made it, because otherwise they will stick together. I'm going to go ahead and do that with my original batch of cavatelli, which I forgot to do. Right, last one are those noodles. So depending on the thickness, we can have linguine, we can have tagliatelle, fettuccine, pappardelle. So what we're going to do is we're going to heavily flour this sheet of dough on both sides. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to wrap that very loosely, like that. And then we'll take our knife and lengthways, depending on how thick you want them, so I'm going to go for tagliatelle, so they're quite thin, is we're going to just chop and just chop, chop, chop. Try and be consistent with the width. Chop, chop, chop. And it's important, it is really important to add a lot of flour beforehand, because otherwise they won't open up, they'll just stick together. A little bit more flour, and then they should open up to give you some nice tagliatelle pasta. Boosh. On to cook them. Right, we've made our pasta. We've got two shapes, farfalle, butterflies, and the cavatelli, which are the just hand-rolled ones. Our noodles, tagliatelle, are just over there. We can freeze them for up to a month, stick them in the fridge for a few days if you want to eat them later. I've also got half of my original pasta dough left. Do whatever you want with that. But I'm going to go ahead and show you a very quick recipe which is called cacio e pepe, which is just cheesy, peppery pasta. It's unreal. So, all we need is a pot of boiling water. Make sure you get it really boiling. And what we're going to do is we're going to cook this pasta for no longer than 2 minutes because we want it to have that nice al dente bite to it. And in another pan, I'm going to start to melt some butter. So be liberal with the butter, make sure you whack a load in there, it's going to make it taste great. Turn that heat down a little bit. So I'm going to throw them in there. So my 2 pasta shapes have gone in. Start the timer for 2 minutes. And this pasta will be super creamy, but we add no cream. So the cream comes from the emulsification of your pasta water. So all the starch in the pasta water will thicken up and go super creamy. So I'm using a skimmer to pull my pasta out and throw it into the pan. If you're going to use a colander or a drainer, just make sure you get a cup of that pasta water and save it. That's key. So the butter's melting on the pan there, ready. We've got about 90 seconds left on the pasta. And what we want is, if you've got it, some Parmesan cheese. And throw a load of that in there, and that will melt in that butter. So I'm talking a lot. So this is for 2 portions. So I'm going to put the cheese in there. And I'm going to go ahead and add my pepper. Now I'm adding no salt. Even though I added unsalted butter, there's a lot of salt in the cheese, and my pasta water's got a lot of salt in it as well. So I don't need any additional salt, just a load of pepper. So if you stir that pasta now, you can start feeling it against the spatula. So it starts its life out quite soft, and then it will get a lot tougher. And then if you cook it for more than 3 minutes, it'll start absorbing water and it'll start going mushy, so just don't bother. It's literally 2 minutes, that's how easy it is. So see the colour's changing a little bit paler there. So I've got about 30 seconds left on that. So the other thing is, this will obviously carry on cooking in this pan. Right? The rest of my pasta, turn that off. So the heat's off now, a bit more cheese. And see how I dragged the pasta out and it brought the water with it. If you're not doing that with a skimmer, like I said, just get a cup of water, keep that, drain your pasta, throw it in, and add a little bit of water. And then just allow that to, oh, lost one. Allow that to just thicken up and emulsify. And that, easy as is, is cacio e pepe. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you go onto my Instagram and follow, and I've got loads of great recipes that you guys can have a go at, easy things like baked mackies and things. So yeah, head over to my Instagram and check it out. Cheers.